voice memos. All right. The book, the performative book. Look at it. I read. The performative camera. Where is it at? Film camera for the vibes. Do I look educated and ready to speak about art yet? All right, this is going to be sort of like an open rant that I've just wanted to make for a while. It's not really a structured thing. What do we do now as artists in the 21st century, especially like right now in the year of 2025, when it feels to me like art is under the safety and the sanctity of art and artists are under more pressure than ever. And in my 21 short years of life, I've seen art and the art that I love change. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that the idea with photography was that, image manipulation comes from Photoshop and things aren't necessarily real because it can be manipulated through Photoshop. But now we have AI and this huge battle that everyone loves to hit on of what is real anymore. Is the AI good enough? Can we trust the imagery that we see now? And this is tough. And I'm I know that photography is not, by some still to this day, considered one of the core visual arts, although I like to think that photography is just as valid as any other visual art. But that's not a conversation for today. The potency of art today, and this is mainly due to the world is, for the most part, for profit and capitalist and has adopted Western economics. The artist today, and I'm kind of ripping this from another video I just watched, the artist has become the entertainer and the critic has become the consumer. Now, this is important because if all we're doing is making art that we think other people are going to like, then we're not taking risks anymore as artists. Of course, the idea of being rich is nice and making money off your art and being able to survive. I saw that old guy on Instagram say that artists don't look crazy anymore. Like it's a sin to, shower and put on deodorant and not show up with ratty hair to public events and stuff. But I see what he's saying there, because art isn't nearly as risky as it used to be. People aren't necessarily, and I'm guilty of this too, ready to put their career on the line for what they believe in art anymore, because that stuff doesn't sell and it denies you opportunities for funding. And that's the biggest thing with art is how do you get to continue producing art? You need the funds, you need financial backing, you need the support of the gallery owners and the book publishers and whoever else is, higher up the totem pole than you in the art institution. And that means that we have to, a lot of the times, water down our message so that it is more sellable. And I'm in art school right now, and I would like to think that I'm surrounded by some pretty radical artists, as art can't escape being political. And on a college campus, which is one of the most liberal places you can go, there's a lot of new ideas and boundary pushing. But still, I see I see people getting censored in my school, and that is holding back their potential and their artistic and creative expression. So, and that's all sort of caused by the fact that you have the dean of the university has to get funding for the department. If you piss off the people who hold the funding through radical art, then you're kind of screwed out of your money, and other students will not benefit from being at that program anymore. Another thing I wanted to talk about is it real if it's not reported? Part of this, the artist is the entertainer thing sort of means that we have to always like peel back the curtain for people and others' enjoyment. I mean, I feel the pressure myself to film everything I'm doing and get behind the scenes footage so that people know you're constantly working and this imagery is real and, you know, there's effort and intentionality behind it, but also like, look at this is interesting, clicks, views, like engage with my art. Engagement is such a huge deal for so many people. I've spoken with a lot of my friends and other contemporary artists who feel like they're not a success if they're not getting as many likes as they would expect on Instagram. And this is a huge problem for everyone because it, again, diminishes creative expression. Especially like if we're creating art, again, art for the audience instead of art for ourselves. And that's something that hopefully you can learn to detach from. I kind of post whatever I feel like. And I'm less worried about diluting the portfolio that I've built up online because I know that, you know, this is my art. I made it. I'm proud of it. And, you know, if you choose to consume it, hopefully you will understand what I'm trying to say. And maybe it's not the most like saturated or visually stunning thing, but that's all just part of the process. I mean, does it exist if it wasn't recorded? Like, yes, I'm making art all the time, and I know there's lots of people who make stuff all the time that they don't put out there. But they're still successful artists, and they're still productive artists. Like, so what? You didn't post, like, 24 paintings that you just did online, and you've saved your favorite one for your feed because you think that matches your aesthetic more and upholds this sort of idea of your output that we have. That doesn't make you a worse artist because we're only seeing like one painting a month from you. It just means that, you know, like you're doing the same thing, but you're not necessarily in conversation with this sort of like social thing that all of us artists have to go through, figuring out how much of ourselves we put out there on the internet and what we're willing to show people. I have a complex about like posting unfinished projects, especially when I'm working on it for class. If it's gonna like show up in critique later, I don't want my classmates to see it in its production because then that will sort of inform what they say about the final product. But I want, you know, I just want crit on the final product instead of like, I think you should change this. I think you should change this. No, I think blocking sort of outside feedback and letting yourself be true to your idea. Like, no idea is a bad idea. You produce it, you finish it, you put it out there, and then, you know, and then you can be welcoming of feedback, and not all feedback's going to be positive, but that should be good. And then from there you can decide whether you want to change your focus or how you create your next piece or not. And it's completely valid to ignore criticism sometimes. Like, lots of people will go through life creating things that don't get understood. Jacques Tati's Playtime, which, funny that Coppola was mentioning that in regards to Megalopolis, but, you know, no one understood that movie for as long as he lived, and it's now become some sort of like a art house cult classic. And I went to see it in the theater, actually. I thought it was a little weird, but I also greatly enjoyed the movie just based off its weirdness. You know, it takes people a while to understand your artwork if it's subversive and doesn't really follow the status quo. And sooner or later, especially if you're, I guess, a sort of a tastemaker or ahead of the curve as far as your art output goes, it will take people a while to understand it. I think that's like one of the things I fear is, and it's probably a lot harder now in the age of social media, is going your whole life like undiscovered as an artist, but then you die and your grandson like goes through your attic and goes through all your negatives and like, oh wow, we've got like a great artist here that was undiscovered for their entire livelihood, like Vivian Meyer. I don't know. It's just like, I don't think that can happen again unless you are completely off the grid, because we're all sort of like posting something. But yeah, it's just a weird thought. I think this also sort of, the like record everything and post everything mentality sort of relates to my thoughts about Gen Z and sort of the art experience. Shout out Jason Munson, who has a great like artist talk from 10 years ago about how to get the millennial inside a gallery. I think that is truer today than it has ever been. And it's like so funny to see what people were thinking about 10 years ago about the experience of the art object and like going to see stuff in public, and how that affects us 10 years down the line. We have shorter attention spans. We are flooded with more imagery constantly. Everything is device connected, even more than it was 10 years ago. And again, I just think that Gen Z is so experience focused at this point that then this is, I think, partly why we see like a slump in the art market and attendance to these large art institutions, is because people want to experience things rather than covet like physical items. So you don't really see as many people buying large prints or paintings or pottery as much as they're going to the gallery, going to the opening night, going to what have you, the fashion show, just to say that they were there and to take it all in, and also to put it on social media so they can be like, haha, like, look where I was at today. Look at me, I'm cultured and doing art stuff. Like, I mean, I love some of Yayoi Kusama's work, but her recent output is so reflective of like what the art market is craving. It's just looks good on social media, looks good on the Instagram stories, the infinity mirror walls and like polka dots in a room, and performance art that is so shallow and vibrant that it can be explained in like a 15-second video. Like, I hate to say it, but the dude with the red buckets, like, that is giving performance art a really bad name, because the layman, like the art layman, can understand it and doesn't they understand the meaning, because there is no meaning other than this like 15-second visual play and interaction within a gallery space. They don't understand why this is selling or why this is being promoted, and to them it dilutes what, like, they love to say modern art. And this is not to shit on anyone who doesn't understand, like, doesn't have a deeper art context. This is just to say, like, actually we as artists are failing if we're putting this shit out and they don't get it. Like, they, not the artist, the consumer doesn't get it because we're being lazy. And the money that is coming in for this lazy art is only reinforcement for this type of shit. I mean, like, Warhol. I think it all comes back to Warhol. We could, like, who doesn't love to complain about the Campbell's soup cans? It was, like, probably a troll, honestly. Like, if we think about it, he was probably trolling. Like, he made this soup can to talk about consumerism and capitalism, and everyone read too deep into it when it was really just, like, this lithograph. I think it was a lithograph or screen print of a soup can that is now, like, worth exponentially more than it should be. And this is the modern art critique, but we can't call it modern art because modern art's already a period of time. It's contemporary art. You walk into a gallery and you see something you don't understand because it's new, and, like, Klein Blue, the big blue shit that Yves Klein did, or Rothko. I personally hate Rothko. My mom loves Rothko, but I just don't, like, to me, it's harder to explain looking at a couple, like, strokes of paint as more meaningful than, I don't know, like Bill Viola's The Raft. I love that piece, and my professor just showed it to me recently. But like, I think that's part of the problem with how art is valued, and maybe that's going to start to change because art is so accessible now that the consumer has more of an impact than they used to. As menial as it is, art is valued based off of its perceived like monetary value. And that sounds weird, but like, you know, what do the galleries and the art collectors and the millionaires who want to seem cooler than they really are stand to gain? It's, okay, when I sell this piece, like, how much am I going to make off of it? I mean, look, like, I completely think it's fine for a rich CEO to like an artist, and or like any multimillionaire or billionaire to have a fascination with an artist because they like the visual language of an artist. But also, I don't see people going out on a limb to support careers of the people they truly believe in if it's just a money hole for them. I mean, you get huge tax breaks on like buying and selling art because it's not the same, you know, as the capital gains tax. Like, no one, you don't get taxed on purchases of fine art goods like that. Jason Momoa has a very unlikely fascination with the photographer Todd Hido, and did like a Apple TV episode with him, which was so weird to watch because it's this big like surfer bro-y kind of dude geeking out about these like ephemeral, or not ephemeral, but spacey and you know, these immaculately like otherworldly pictures that Todd Hido does, which is so out of the realm of like Momoa's artistry. He's an actor, not like his whole thing is about like, you know, getting into character and acting and playing this thing. And Todd Hido's thing is like representing what's right in front of him. So I think to me that seemed pretty different. But he like geeks out, and Todd, and I'm saying his first name like I know him, he buys Todd like a SL3 or something like that. Like not a small not a small thing by any means. I think it's like a $7,000 or $8,000 camera. And he's just like giddy that he gets to go on like a shooting experience with Todd Hido, which like I would never turn that down. But it's so funny seeing this like big kind of brolic, I guess like surfer bro, just geeking out over this like, fine artist. Because they come from two completely different worlds, to me at least. And again, sort of going back to the like art is for everyone, art is homogenous now kind of thing. I think like, I don't believe that art should be as pretentious as people believe it is. I think, there's this discourse about like gatekeeping that's going on online now. And to some degree, I agree with that. I mean, in music, I think it's a little weird. There's lots of artists I support that are smaller that I would want to do well because that enables them to keep making their art. So, like, everyone who was upset when, I don't know, like, My Bloody Valentine was blowing up on TikTok, or Deftones, like those kind of bands. One, they're big enough as it is. Those bands are not underground. They've never been underground, or maybe they've. But everyone who's into that kind of music knows who they are. You're not hiding anything. This perception of the art or the artistry sort of like deteriorates once everyone knows about it. And music is so weird to me because if more people are listening to Loveless, maybe they'll go on tour again because they think there's more support for their music than there was like 5 years ago when no one was really talking about them online except in these small music circles. But in certain aspects, I kind of get it. If everyone can, like the idea of the artisan is kind of gone. Like you don't go, how many places can you go to get your shoes fixed well? Like the idea of a cobbler doesn't really exist anymore. There's like, no tradesmen anymore, really. Like, unless you're in a big city, tailoring, it's harder to find tailoring. It's harder to find a cobbler. It's harder to go to people for specialty services that they've been, working their whole life on. They've got this like sweat equity. I think that's why some people are so obsessed with Japan and Italy for craftsmanship in certain things, especially fashion, because they are dedicated and experienced, and they've been putting lots of hours into achieving this like closeness to perfection. And I really respect that. I mean, I think a lot about if I should spend my whole life doing one thing in art as a means to getting as good at it as I can be. And, you have to be humble. There's no way I'll ever be the best photographer, but I think, or the best visual artist. But if I think I don't, or I think sometimes if I don't put all of my drive into honing this like craft to be as sharp as possible, then I'll be sort of a jack of all trades, master of none. And that just doesn't work for some people. So back to like the art world at large, I think because art is more accessible to everyone, it's getting harder to see art as better, especially because the hours and the time and the labor are sort of fading away from the final product. I mean, God, you love to hate him. Caleb Corbin art on Instagram. Everyone is ragging on this guy because his paintings look exactly like Basquiat, and he does his whole thing in like a 30-second Instagram reel where he'll like slosh paint over the canvas, and then here's how he's paying his rent. It's like, okay, well, you don't have a unique idea that you're presenting us with. We've seen this before. We've seen this a lot of times before. And it's not like true to your identity as an artist. And also on top of that, you're not putting in like the time, the effort, those two kind of go together, or the intentionality to make this art. Like, those are some of the things we look for in, like, what is it saying? Is it easily reproducible? How much time or effort or experience did it take for the artist to get here? And really, from what he shows us, not a lot. And I'm not afraid to sort of, hate on that shit because, I mean, everyone else is, but also like, it's sort of making people think that they can go do that and just make like as a good side hustle. The amount of times I've seen people say like spinning canvas art is a good side hustle is just demoralizing, because there's like this market for shitty and shallow work that people want to put up on the walls of their hotel room or their nice luxury apartment. And people think that if you bullshit it, and a lot of art is bullshit, let's, get that out of the way, that if you bullshit it and make it, splash with a pop of color, you can sell any canvas for any like perceived value you set the piece at, which, I mean, you know what? Congrats to you. If you can convince someone that your like terrible drip, like crayon drip canvas art is worth something, then you're an artist. You did the same thing Andy Warhol did. But to the hundreds of thousands of people who have spent their education or their entire life like working on a thing that they sort of slave over and try and produce. I don't know if slave over is like a good word anymore, but it just makes things like less special, or maybe it makes them more special. I mean, if you go to a gallery and see something and you're like, oh my God, I have no idea how that person made that, maybe it is more special. So I guess to like my fellow young artist, is the only solution to just like be better, like push yourself more and be at the top of your class and produce amazing, like jaw-dropping work. Because I think if like within the context of photography, I can't really speak to the other like fine arts, but the advent of good mobile photography and AI makes it so that you're not special anymore if you do regular photography. Like, if you are a wedding photographer who shoots on a DSLR and you're only used to using natural light and you're like a huge golden hour fan, but there's no real storytelling within your images other than just capturing the moment, you're probably a little worried about your job right now because people believe, and it may or may not be true, that they can beat you, or they can produce images that are more valuable to them because they didn't spend nearly as much money on hiring someone with their phone or with, their cousin's digital camera, because it's doing all the work for you. I mean, look, I've seen some great iPhone photos. The sensors in those things are getting great. Even more than that, the AI, assists and upscaling technology are getting really good at making a good photo. Like, every photo you take on iPhone now is close to a good photo. It doesn't make great photos because great photos come with experience and intentionality and effort. But if all of your iPhone photos are good photos, then I can see how it's, maybe not worth your time to hire a photographer to take great photos, because that's going to cost a lot of money, as it should, because they've spent their whole life like building up that experience and it's a service. But, painters, how are you selling your shit on Etsy? I go on Etsy and the first 10 things I see are AI graphic designed like patterns. Graphic designers. How are you staying afloat in a world where you can just go into Adobe Firefly and make any sort of custom font you want? Like, without these tools, I mean, I don't know. That's a conversation for a different day. And the AI debate and like conversation that we have as artists is such a slog. It's like really depressing if you don't, if you can't beat them, join them. But then again, like, is it authentic anymore? I don't know. Rant over. I want to sort of organize this a little more in the future. And I'd love, this is something I want to bring in some of my art friends to talk about. I don't know. I'm not really a YouTuber, but I like putting stuff out there and I like having conversations with people on the future of art. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. Oh, wait. There we go.